Okay, let's dive in. There's this big superhero movie, Thunderbolts, slated for 2025.
Right.
But then suddenly, all the talk, all the marketing shifts to the new Avengers. It's pretty confusing.
It really is. It's like, wait, what movie are we actually talking about here? It adds this whole extra layer to just, the film itself.
Exactly. So for you listening, think of this as your guide to understanding not just the movie, this team of anti-heroes, but also this, well, slightly strange marketing rollout.
Yeah, what was going on?
We've gathered everything we could find, production details, character breakdowns, reviews, news articles about the name thing, the works.
The goal here is really to give you the full picture, a shortcut to being totally up to speed on Thunderbolts asterisk and all.
Without needing to piece it together yourself from dozens of different places.
And the sources, they paint a picture, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Movie details, Wikipedia, IMDb, the news cycle, critic reviews, they all point towards a film trying to be both a big Marvel spectacle and something a bit more character-focused.
Definitely seems that way. So where should we start? Maybe just the basics. How did Thunderbolts even come about in the MCU?
Okay, yeah. So whispers started back around 2021, maybe a bit earlier. But it became official, like formally announced, in June 2022. Jake Schreier was named director, Eric Pearson on the script initially.
And this is positioned pretty importantly in the timeline, right?
Absolutely. It's the 36th MCU film, which is wild in itself.
Wow.
And it's the film that wraps up Phase 5.
Setting the stage for the whole multiverse saga, Phase 6, Fantastic Four, all that jazz.
Exactly. And the core idea, the premise, it's not your usual shiny heroes.
No, this is more the slightly tarnished crew.
Right. A group of anti-heroes, many faces you'll recognize, forced to work together on some dangerous mission. And in doing so, they kind of have to face their own past.
Which brings us to the creative team, because there are some interesting names involved, especially people linked to, well, Beef.
That's a big one, yeah. Lee Seung-jin, who created Beef, came on board for rewrites around March 2023. Then Joanna Callow, who worked on Beef and was co-showrunner on The Bear, she joined for more rewrites in early 2024.
So people known for really digging into character.
Definitely. Even the production designer, Grace Yun, and the director, Schreier, they both have Beef on their resumes. It feels very intentional.
Like they were trying to inject that specific character-driven sensibility.
Yeah.
But the production itself wasn't entirely straightforward.
No, there were bumps. The Hollywood strikes in 2023 caused some delays, pushed things back.
Right, that affected a lot of projects.
It did. And there were some cast adjustments needed around early 2024 because of those schedule shifts. But filming eventually got underway February to June 2024, mostly in Atlanta at Trilith Studios and Atlanta Metro Studios.
Standard Marvel territory.
Pretty much. But they also shot on location in Utah and, interestingly, Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia.
Oh, really? Why Malaysia?
Seems tied to the plot. Maybe Sentry's backstory. And apparently Florence Pugh was really keen to do a stunt involving the Merdeka 118 tower there.
Huh. Good for her. So, okay, they wrap filming. The movie comes out early May 2025. Big budget, reported around $180 million.
That's the number, yeah. And how did it do?
Well, it seems like it had a pretty strong start. The opening weekend domestically was somewhere in the $74 to $76 million range, depending on the source.
Solid numbers.
And globally, it pulled in over $160 million pretty quickly. By that point, early May, it was the 8th biggest film of 2025 so far.
Not bad at all. Some analysts were even saying it felt like a bit of a reset for Marvel, maybe, after some other films had more mixed results.
Yeah, potential positive sign. And its role in the bigger MCU story.
It connects threads, right? But also looks forward.
Absolutely. As the end of Phase 5, it ties up some loose ends from things like Black Widow, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Ant-Man and the Wasp. You see those characters again.
Right.
But more importantly, the ending, and especially the post-credits scenes, they're direct lead-ins to the multiverse saga. They tease Avengers, Doomsday, and, crucially, the Fantastic Four. Okay, so production sorted, box office looking good, MCU connections established. Let's talk vision. What were Schreier and the writers actually trying to do with this film?
I think the main goal was to make something that felt like a quintessential Marvel blockbuster, big action, high stakes, but also something with like real character interiority, thematic depth.
Going beyond just the surface level.
Exactly, exploring the inner lives of these very flawed people.
And Schreier himself, his background seems key to that. Robot and Frank,
Ugh.
Paper Towns, those Beef episodes. He's not just an action director.
No, definitely not. He even won an Emmy for Beef. And apparently he's friends with John Watts, the Spider-Man director, so maybe he got some insight into the Marvel machine that way.
Could be.
His pitch process for Thunderbolts was long, like 6 or 7 months. He was really drawn to these morally gray characters.
And that Beef influence again.
Yeah.
Focusing on the human elements.
Yeah, he explicitly mentioned wanting to explore their internal struggles, which led directly to making mental health a core theme.
That's pretty unusual for a big superhero film.
It really is. But he also wanted that balance, the internal stuff, but also comedy and action. He cited influences like Reservoir Dogs, Ronin, even Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
Interesting mix. And you said the asterisk came from his pitch meetings?
Apparently so. Just a little visual quirk he used that stuck.
Huh? Okay, so the writers.
Yeah.
Eric Pearson, a Marvel veteran, right?
Yeah, he wrote on Black Widow, Thor, Ragnarok. He had the initial concept, saw Yelena as the leader. He also developed the Sentry Void storyline, based heavily on the Paul Jenkins J. Lee Sentry comics.
Which delves into that duality, the powerful hero with a terrifying dark side.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Then Lee Sung-jin came in, brought by Schreier, presumably to really amp up that thematic depth and character focus, drawing on what they did in Beef.
And Joanna Callow.
Also from the Beef world and The Bear. She did further rewrites focusing on character development and apparently helped shape concepts like the shame rooms that feature prominently later on.
Shame rooms. We'll get to that. But it sounds like a real collaboration blockbuster experience meets deep character work.
Totally. And the marketing even leaned into that, highlighting the writers and director of Beef. They knew it was a selling point.
Makes sense. And the look of the film. You mentioned Grace Yun and Andrew Droz Palermo.
Yeah, Yun did production design. She worked on Hereditary, too, besides Booth.
Yeah.
And Palermo shot The Green Knight. So you've got people who know how to create a distinct atmosphere.
Going for a specific visual style, not just generic superhero stuff.
Right. They talked about wanting kineticism for clarity in the action, making it exciting but easy to follow. And they shot parts for IMAX, using that expanded aspect ratio for bigger spectacle.
Okay, let's get to the team itself, the cast. This is an ensemble of, well, complicated individuals.
Definitely not the Avengers classic lineup. It's all about anti-heroes with messy pasts.
Leading the charge, arguably, is Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova.
Yeah, Natasha Romanoff's adoptive sister. We saw her dealing with grief and maybe some questionable choices in Black Widow and Hawkeye.
And here she steps up more, becomes a leader.
It seems like that's her arc. Finding purpose, maybe taking charge of this chaotic group. Her relationship with David Harbour's Red Guardian, Alexei, is explored more deeply, too.
Her sort of father figure.
Right. Harbour said Yelena kind of dislikes him, but also needs him. He brings comedy, but also some surprising emotional moments between them. There are even flashbacks with Violet McGraw as young Yelena.
Oh, interesting. And then there's Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes.
The Winter Soldier. But now, a U.S. congressman, which is a twist.
That is a twist.
He's kind of the reluctant leader again, trying to manage this group. Stan compared him to McMurphy from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, finding this unexpected connection with fellow outcasts.
A band of misfits. Fits the bill. And Wyatt Russell's John Walker, U.S. agent.
Yep, the former Captain America, dishonorably discharged. He's volatile, represents that sort of militarized patriotism gone wrong, always on the edge between asset and liability.
Then we have Olga Kurylenko back as Taskmaster, Antonia Dreykov.
Now free from her father's control after Black Widow, she's looking for redemption, autonomy.
And Hannah John Kamen as Ava Starr, Ghost.
Yeah.
From Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Right. She apparently has better control over her phasing powers now, not in that constant state of disequilibrium. She joins the team looking for purpose, too.
And overseeing, or maybe manipulating, all of them. Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
The Contessa, or Val, now CIA director. She's the one putting this team together, initially maybe just to get rid of them or use them for her own ends. She's the mastermind. We even see a young Val in flashbacks, played by Chiara Stella.
Pulling the strings. But there are key newcomers too, right?
Big time. Most notably Lewis Pullman as Bob Reynolds, a.k.a. the Sentry. And his dark side, the Void.
Okay, tell me about Sentry. He's supposed to be incredibly powerful.
Like, stronger than all the Avengers combined, potentially. But he has amnesia, and he's got this internal entity. The Void, depicted as shadows, basically invincible, can turn people into shadows. It's intense.
Sounds it.
And Bob's story is deeply tied to mental health. Depression, self-loathing, isolation because of the Void. Schreier based this arc on a friend's real experiences with depression. He's both a weapon and a huge danger. Clayton Cooper plays young Bob in flashback.
Wow, okay. Heavy stuff. Who else is new?
Geraldine Viswanathan plays Mel, Val's assistant. She's younger, was apparently still in high school when the first Avengers team assembled. She acts as a sort of moral compass, grappling with the team's methods.
Provides an outsider's perspective.
Exactly. And Wendell Pierce is Congressman Gary, a political figure overseeing the team. Chris Bauer plays Holt, a security guy for the OXE group involved in Sentry's origins. There are other smaller roles, too, rounding out the world.
So is this mix of familiar faces and new threats, all with baggage?
Yeah, they're described as misfits, rejects, lots of bickering, doubt, but maybe some reluctant unity. They've all been burned by government programs before, so they're not exactly waving the flag. More uncertainty than patriotism.
Okay, so we have the team. Let's walk through the plot. How does Thunderbolts unfold?
All right, it kicks off with Yelena in Malaysia. She's on a mission for Val, basically destroying a lab to cover up the CIA's connection to this OXE group and their Sentry project.
Cleaning up Val's mess.
Pretty much. Val, meanwhile, is facing impeachment back home. So she sends Yelena, Walker, Ghost, and Taskmaster to another OXE facility.
Under what pretext?
Some kind of mission, but it goes sideways fast. There's a deadly fight. Ava actually kills Taskmaster.
Whoa. Okay.
And they find Bob Reynolds. They realize Val sent them there to be incinerated, to tie up loose ends permanently.
Classic Val. So, escape time.
Yep. Yelena, Walker, and Ghost manage to break out while Bob causes a diversion using his powers.
Oh, no.
Red Guardian shows up. Turns out he was monitoring Val's comms. He scoops up the trio and, in the surprisingly touching moment, names them the Thunderbolts after Yelena's childhood soccer team.
Okay, a team is born, sort of.
But then they get captured by Bucky Barnes. Initially, he wants to use them against Val. But when he finds out Bob was basically a victim, an unwilling test subject in Val's Sentry program, he changes his mind and allies with them.
Okay, enemy of my enemy.
Exactly. So now this unlikely group storms the Watchtower, which is the old Avengers Tower, now owned by Val and repurposed as her HQ.
Right.
And there they discover Val has fully activated Bob as the Sentry. He just wipes the floor with them.
Well.
Effortlessly.
Oh.
But then Sentry gets this god complex, turns on Val herself. Before he can do real damage, Val's assistant hits a kill switch.
Does it work?
Sort of. It incapacitates Sentry, but it also unleashes the void. The whole city gets plunged into darkness, and these shame rooms manifest.
Okay, explain the shame rooms again.
They're like pocket dimensions, trapping people in their worst memories, their deepest traumas. The final act basically plays out in this mental, psychological space.
So not just punching, it's internal battles made external.
Exactly. Yelena has to enter this shadow dimension, confront her own past trauma. We see bits of her Red Room experience, maybe to reach Bob emotionally.
Can she?
She gets through. The rest of the team follows her into this mental landscape. They end up in a shared memory of Bob's past in Kuala Lumpur.
Where he was experimented on.
Right. It's revealed he was actually a drug addict seeking help, trying to improve himself, and OXE exploited him. The Void tries to take over, immobilizes the team by trapping them in their shame.
How do they break free?
Bob starts fighting the Void internally, and the team manages to intervene, reaching out to him, showing him he isn't alone in his pain and his struggles. It's that connection, that collective support.
That defeats the Void.
It causes the Void to just disappear. The darkness lifts, the city goes back to normal. They face the inner demons, literally.
But Val gets the last laugh.
You know it. While they're recovering, she's already spinning the narrative, holds a press conference, introduces them to the world not as the Thunderbolts, but as
the new Avengers.
Bingo! The team has a little choice but to play along, at least publicly. But Yelena gives Val a warning. We own you now. The power dynamic has shifted.
And the end credits reflect this.
Yeah, the title card changes from Thunderbolts to the new Avengers. It really drives home that rebranding.
And the post-credit scene, set 14 months later.
Right. We see the new Avengers' new suits operating out of the Watchtower. They receive a distress signal from space. Satellite imaging reveals an interdimensional ship marked with a big 4.
The Fantastic Four are coming.
No doubt about it. There's also a little side note mention. Sam Wilson, Captain America, is apparently suing Val for copyright infringement over the Avengers name and is building his own Avengers team.
Setting up some major conflict down the line. Okay, so the film comes out, plot happens. How did people react? Critics first.
Generally, really positively. Reviews were strong. Rotten Tomatoes scores were initially reported super high, like 95%, eventually settling around 88 or 89%.
That's impressive for Phase 5.
Yeah, at the time, it made it the highest-rated MCU film of Phase 5, even above Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 3.
Wow. What were they praising specifically?
Florence Pugh, almost universally. Her performance as Yelena was a massive highlight.
She's always great.
The ensemble cast dynamics, the character arcs, Lewis Pullman as Sentry also got a lot of positive mentions. And the thematic depth that focus on mental health really resonated with critics.
The tone as well. People seem to find it refreshing.
Yeah, terms like A24 feeling or indie sensibility got thrown around. A lot of critics felt it was a return to form for Marvel, something a bit different.
But not perfect. Any criticisms?
Some felt the balance between the dark themes and the MCU humor wasn't always seamless.
Tricky balance to strike.
And others pointed out that, despite the fresh coat of paint, the plot still hit some familiar MCU beats, maybe felt a bit formulaic in places, or the ending wasn't quite as strong for some. Metacritic score was a solid 68, indicating generally favorable reviews.
Okay. And audiences. Did they agree?
Pretty much. Metacritic user scores were also positive, around 7.4 out of 10. That strong opening weekend suggests audiences were definitely interested.
And the feeling was it might have legs. Keep performing well.
Yeah, analysts thought the positive buzz could lead to sustained business. That idea of it being a potential reset for Marvel's public perception seemed plausible.
And the whole late-stage New Avengers marketing. Did that play a role?
Potentially, yeah. By leveraging the highly recognizable Avengers brand, even as a marketing twist, it might have broadened its appeal beyond just those initially interested in the Thunderbolts concept.
Interesting strategy. Let's dig deeper into the themes. You mentioned mental health being central.
Hugely central. It feels like a significant focus, maybe more than any previous superhero film. It's right there at the forefront.
How does it manifest across the characters?
Well, you see it everywhere. Yelena's dealing with her trauma. Pugh even mentioned playing her with depression sweats. Bucky's grappling with everything he did as the Winter Soldier. Walker's got his own issues. And Bob Sentryvoid is, the embodiment of severe mental health struggles.
And the climax happening in those shame rooms.
Exactly. The final battle is internal, psychological. It's about confronting trauma and finding connection. Schreier and the writers were clearly aiming for that internality, drawing from Beef.
And Schreier basing Sentry's arc on his friend's experience with depression. That's quite personal.
It adds weight. The film's message seems to be about community, connection, finding strength in shared pain, rather than just punching harder. The resolution comes through collective support, not brute force.
You mentioned comparisons to A24 films and also James Gunn's work.
Yeah, the A24 comparison comes from that thematic depth, the character focus, the willingness to explore darker emotions, maybe a slightly more grounded aesthetic in places. Pugh herself called it a badass indie A24 feeling assassin movie at one point.
High praise.
And the James Gunn comparison.
Well, you see echoes of his Guardians or the Suicide Squad and the dysfunctional team dynamic, the bickering, the blend of humor and dark themes, that misfit irreverence.
But maybe with a different flavor. Right. Reviews noted that while it borrows that vibe, Schreier's film feels maybe leaner and less antic than Gunn's usual style, a bit less focused on constant jokes, perhaps.
And what are the big implications for the MCU going forward?
It's huge. Firstly, this team, now the New Avengers, is confirmed to play a role in Avengers. Doomsday. The whole main cast is apparently involved.
So they're major players now.
Definitely. And they've established this government-sanctioned team operating from the Watchtower. Plus, you have that conflict brewing with Sam Wilson's Avengers, 2 Avengers teams.
That could get complicated.
And of course, the massive tease for the Fantastic Four. That post-credit scene directly sets up their arrival, even though the Fantastic Four, First Steps is technically Phase 6 and supposedly set mostly in an alternate universe. The connection is made. There were even reports the Russo brothers might have directed that post-credits scene.
Oh, wow. So Thunderbolts is really a linchpin. Does its success suggest a broader shift for Marvel?
Maybe. The positive reception to its more grounded, character-focused approach, especially the mental health angle, could encourage them to explore similar tones in future projects. A move away from pure spectacle, perhaps.
Time will tell. Okay, let's tackle the elephant in the room, or rather the asterisk. Thunderbolts versus the New Avengers. Unpack that whole situation for us.
Right, the asterisk. It was a deliberate marketing choice, obviously designed to create buzz, which it did for over a year.
But where did that actually come from?
Schreier said it literally came from his final pitch meeting, just a sort of playful visual note he used. Marvel saw the potential and ran with it.
And the narrative reason.
It reflects the story. The team is initially called Thunderbolts by Red Guardian, a personal name. But then Val publicly rebrands them as the New Avengers for political gain. The end credits changing title visually confirms this shift. The asterisk basically flagged the name as provisional, subject to change.
And this rebranding wasn't just in the movie. It became the core marketing push after release.
Exactly. That transformation was apparently part of the script from early on. Val needed a way to control the narrative, fill the void left by the original Avengers, and maybe give this team, especially Yelena, a new sense of purpose, however twisted.
So the post-release campaign mirrored Val's actions.
Precisely. Social media updates, billboards changing overnight, those videos of the cast revealing the title, like Sebastian Stan finding a changed bus stop ad. Schreier said it was meant to feel like Val's PR machine kicking into gear in the real world, a planned buildup.
But officially, the movie is still Thunderbolts.
Officially, yes. Marvel called the New Avengers stuff a fun marketing gimmick. The legal title, the one registered, remains Thunderbolts, with the asterisk.
So the strategy was?
Use the in-movie twist to generate post-release buzz and maybe boost the box office by attaching the powerful Avengers brand name to it, even unofficially. It created this unique, interactive fan experience, blurring the lines.
Acknowledging that spoilers would get out anyway and trying to control the narrative?
Pretty much. A very dynamic, reactive marketing approach, deploying the New Avengers branding very quickly after the premiere.
And alongside this unusual title campaign, they had all the standard promotional materials, too.
Oh, yeah. Trailers, posters, stills, behind-the-scenes stuff.
What about the trailers? Anything notable there?
They released several. An official teaser, a big game trailer, a final trailer. Each one gradually revealed more about the characters, the plot, the tone, that central Sentry Void conflict. It was a phased rollout, and later versions subtly hinted at or were updated after the New Avengers reveal.
And the posters, did they play with the asterisk and the title change?
Definitely. Early posters used the Thunderbolts logo, often making the asterisk a prominent design element, maybe containing the team silhouette within it.
Clever.
Then, post-release, you saw visual shifting. Posters where the Thunderbolts logo looked like it was being ripped away or replaced by the New Avengers. Billboards physically changed. They also did character posters, IMAX posters, international versions, art featuring Sentry's emblem, the whole 9 yards.
And that Wheaties box tie-in.
Yeah. That showed up in the movie itself and on actual promotional billboards. It was all part of making the marketing feel integrated with the film's world.
So conventional stuff alongside the unconventional. Photos behind the scenes.
Yep. Official stills of the team, costumes, key scenes, behind-the-scenes featurettes with the cast talking about the making of the film, director Schreier on set. Those more traditional materials helped ground the whole campaign.
Okay, so wrapping this all up. If you had to boil down this whole deep dive into Thunderbolts, asterisk, New Avengers, what are the key takeaways?
I'd say, 1, it's about a really unique team of anti-heroes. 2, it takes a bold step by focusing heavily on mental health and trauma. 3, it generally landed well with critics and audiences. 4, that whole asterisk branding thing was a fascinating plot-driven marketing strategy. And 5, it's a really pivotal film for the future of the MCU.
All right, so here's something to leave you, our listener, thinking about. Given how well Thunderbolts seems to have done with its focus on flawed characters and deeper themes, what does that signal for superhero stories moving forward? Are we going to see more of this? And maybe, how does introducing the Fantastic Four into an MCU with a fractured Avengers landscape, plus this new government team, how does that completely reshape things?
That's the big question, isn't it? Does this success embolden Marvel to keep exploring morally gray areas and more complex themes? It could really change the feel of the universe. And yeah, juggling 2 potential Avengers teams, Val's manipulation, and the arrival of Marvel's first family, the potential for new dynamics, new conflicts, it's huge. It feels like the MCU could be heading into a much more complicated, maybe even more interesting era.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Movie Deep Dive, a featured show on the Binge Radio Network. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This episode was created with the help of AI tools for research, narration, and production, keeping things smart, fast, and always binge-worthy. Until next time, keep binging.